Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Mindy, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the Spellbinders Small Die of the Month, which creates some gorgeous snowflakes that we'll be using in our backgrounds for today. Here's a look at the dies that you'll receive in the Small Die of the Month. You can see we have 7 dies on here. A couple of these are layering dies. So this is the actual snowflake. I'll use the other ones later on in a card, but I wanted to show you the 3 different sizes of the snowflake that you can use separately or they layer together. I'm going to start off by doing some really quick ink blending. This is a very simple card that would be very easy to recreate. I'm working on my Tim Holtz glass media mat to do my ink blending. I really like how my brushes kind of slide onto the edge of the cardstock. It makes it for a very easy application. And using my Tailored Expressions blending brushes, I'm inking on some grape juice ink from Hero Arts, and I'm ink blending that onto some Plum cardstock. I'm just going around the very outer edges of it just to kind of darken that and leaving the middle the actual color of the cardstock. This is going to just kind of highlight the middle of my card. Once I'm happy with the ink blending, I'll be attaching my snowflakes, and I apologize, I did this off camera, but what I had done is die cut these snowflakes from pixie dust glitter cardstock and silver glitter cardstock. And I had layered them together with some Lawn Fawn liquid glue, which held really well. And then I'm taking those layered snowflakes and adding them to my background. Now you can see I only have 2 layers on here. You could add that smallest snowflake for a 3rd layer, or you can use them individually. So a very versatile die set that you have here. I'm just adding little dabs of glue around my area and just sporadically adding them to the cardstock. Then we'll go ahead and work on our sentiment. I'm using my Misty tool to stamp my sentiment. This is from Very Merry Sentiments stamp set from Concord and 9th. I'm going to stamp this onto some Neenah Solar White cardstock. This is 80 pound, and I'm using the Altenew Obsidian Black ink. Now this gave a really great impression, so I didn't feel the need to have to stamp it again. I love the look of the labels, and I'm going to trim these out individually. So using my paper trimmer, I'm just going to trim off the very outer edges first, kind of create a box out of this. So just putting this in an easier format to cut. So once I leave that small white border around that sentiment panel, I will cut these down to individual strips. Once I have all my sentiments cut out, I did go ahead and add foam tape to the back of each one of those, and then I'm going to add this to my card front. Now, being that the word Christmas is the longest sentiment that I have in here, I'm going to start with that one first when I actually attach. I'm just going to line these up to kind of eyeball about where these are going to go on the card front, and once I'm happy with that, I'll start removing the backing of that foam adhesive and attaching that to my card front. As always, I like to use my trusty tweezers to help me line up my sentiments. That always just helps me keep my fingertips out of the way so I can really get a good look at where I'm placing my sentiment down. So then once I'm happy with that, I can give that a good push to make sure that adhesive is really stuck to my card front. Now we're going to work on the second card, and this is the other part of the Small Die of the Month. This can layer up together. I actually only have 2 layers here, but there is another layer to make 3 layers out of this. I die cut them from the Pixie Dust glitter cardstock and also some gold glitter cardstock this time. So here I did capture on camera how I layered these together. So just adding that Lawn Fawn liquid glue, and this really does hold up well attaching this to glitter cardstock. You could also use foiled cardstock, vellum, anything that you would like to create this snowflake. This is going to create a large snowflake on our card. Now I'm going to work on the background of my card. And I'm going to be using the Hand Drawn Snowflakes rubber stamp set from Hero Arts. If you're going to use the stamp set, the rubber stamp set already has foam on it, so just remove the foam insert from your MISTI tool. I know there are a lot of ways to do background stamps. I personally like to line them up in my MISTI tool in case I need to double stamp if I didn't get a good impression the first time. So I'm taking that Plum cardstock again, lining that up in my MISTI. I'm going to prep that with an anti-static powder tool to help remove any static and make sure that my embossing ink only sticks to where I want it to. And then I'll go ahead and ink up my background stamp really well with an embossing ink. And then I can close the lid of my MISTI and just push that down really well. Now I wanted to make sure I had a good impression, so I do like to ink it up and stamp again. Then once I have that stamped down, I'm going to sprinkle on Sparkle Embossing Powder, and this is just one of my favorites. It's a great way to add kind of a subtle background. It has a lot of sparkle to it, and it kind of changes depending on what color cardstock you're using. Then off on the side, I do have my heat tool warming up. I want my heat tool to be really nice and hot, so I'm not spending a lot of time over my cardstock. So I'll melt that embossing powder, and you can see it's got a great sparkle and shimmer to it. Now I took the pieces that I adhered together for my large snowflake and I lined them up about where I wanted to go. I wanted this kind of in the top portion of my card, kind of overhanging. And then I'm just going to apply that liquid glue again to the back of it and adhere those down. Don't mind that greeting off on the side. I was going to use that and I decided on something different. So when I do hold it down a little bit, you could place an acrylic block on top to just add a little bit more pressure to that textured background, but I just held it with my fingertips for a few minutes and this holds up, like I said, really, really well. So use whatever glue you prefer. This is just my personal preference. And then once I have my larger pieces glued down, I can come in with the smaller pieces that I had die cut out of gold glitter cardstock, and this really makes it turn into a snowflake to have that small delicate piece added in between those larger die cuts. I did do a little stamping off screen, and for my sentiment I used the Bitty Holiday Wishes from My Favorite Things. I had heat embossed that in gold embossing powder onto some black cardstock and trimmed that down just to a narrow strip. I added a little bit of foam tape behind that, and I'm going to attach that right in the center of my snowflake. Once I'm done, I'll give you a close-up of the sparkly background and these die cuts. So you're getting a lot out of the small die of the month. For only being 7 dies, you can really do a lot with this. I will have all of the supplies listed down below in my video description and over on my blog as well, so you can always head over there and check that out. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed today's inspiration using the Spellbinders Small Die of the Month for November 2019.